Hello and welcome to a late September edition of the Aces Loaded podcast. It's great to have you with us as we drift into fall. My name is Zack. Glad to be with you as always. I'm joined today by Vince Ruffino, Senior Marketing Manager. He also produces the pod. He is my co-host once again this week. Vince, how you doing, buddy?
It's great to always be here, Zack. I'm doing pretty well. When you said late September, that kind of blew my mind. It's been a weird year. That's seemingly flying by, but not flying by at the same time. So I'm just excited that we have soccer at Greater Nevada Field with a really talented team that we'll talk about or touch upon. And, Aces baseball's getting around the corner, man. Believe it or not, we're starting to talk about what next year is going to bring, what we're going to be doing at the stadium. So I'm getting excited about that too. I definitely miss having baseball in the biggest little city. How about you? What are you up to?
Well, I'm actually home right now. So this podcast was recorded in two parts. If you're watching it, you're going to be like, well, why are there trees in the background? I'm home in Worcester, Massachusetts, doing this segment. I interviewed David Calvert, our longtime team photographer. He's going to be on the second segment, but did that back home in California. So just kind of two locations, but visiting some family this week and just trying to stay safe, but I think branch out a little more and just see people I hadn't seen, in quite some time. So I think my family falls into that category.
Return to the motherland of New England for us.
Yes. Yeah. But I need to go down to New Haven at some point and get me some pizza. I haven't done that. A pizza.
Some pizza. So, I have my flights booked for December. I'll be back in Connecticut. I'll probably have to head on down to New Haven for some pizza, but there's some good pizza where I'm from in Middletown too. There's one of my favorite places called Crust on Main Street. Really cool bar. And then they have brick oven pizza, which is
you're making my mouth water here. By the way, I do want to get into Aces in 1868, but if you forgot that it's September, the Earth, Wind, and Fire tweet kicked up the other day. That's always a nice reminder that it's September. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Of course.
21st night of September.
Yeah.
There's some great September songs. I didn't intend to get into talking about this, but there's some great September songs. Wake Me Up When September Ends, September Morn by Neil Diamond. James Taylor had a song, September Grass. Earth, Wind, and Fire, obviously, September. I mean, you keep going on and on, but it's a great song month.
It might, yeah, I was about to say, is it like the most used month for songs or song titles? I can't think of another one that really is prevalent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go through all the months, but the November Rain.
That was the first one that came to my mind, yeah.
GNR, I think that's probably, for my money, their best song. I know there's more prominent, well-known songs.
That's going to be a hot take.
It's just for me, it's a pretty epic song.
Oh, it's great. I'm not debating that, but I feel like there's a lot of Guns N' Roses purists out there. And I don't know any of them, but
you have a submission for this title? I mean, what's your song then? Your GNR?
The best Guns N' Roses song?
Yeah. I mean, you're taken back that I had the gall to submit November Rain. I
just feel like there's people out there that are will dig into the fourth song on their third album or something and be like, no, man, only the true people know that this is the best song by Guns N' Roses.
The best part of all it is that there's no wrong answer. It's totally subjective. But I don't know. I feel like you were just taken back in a way I didn't expect. I thought November Rain would rank right up there for GNR songs. But
My
I guess
dad's a huge Guns N' Roses fan, and I just can hear him in my head saying what is he talking about? With November Rain, it's just a popular song that a lot of people know. Versus, like I said, the deep cuts.
Well, how about this? For next time, I want you to ask your old man what song is the best GNR song, and he can submit 3 if he wants. And if November Rain happens to be in the top 3, I'll feel like I've been vindicated. I will.
We're gonna follow up on this. We'll have to follow this up on the pod. I'll have to send him a text today because I'm dying to know now. Okay. No, he's gonna come with some song that's not down Main Street.
I love it. I can't wait to hear. Dude, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. You mentioned 1868 FC having a remarkable year, arguably the best team in the USL. The Aces are right around the corner. I know for a lot of folks, it doesn't seem that way, not only because of the time of year it is now, but obviously the circumstances. But you can really speak to this. This is the time of year, would have been after the minor league baseball season. Playoffs would be just ending, I think, right about now. But this is
2 days ago was the AAA national champion. That was scheduled a day or two ago. So it hit hard.
like this is the time of year where a lot of ideas kind of get put in the incubator, and the promotional calendar starts to get, built a little bit out, and you start to have a vision for what 2021 is going to look like. Maybe take us inside you guys' war room up there at Greater Nevada Field. And are you going to, is it as simple as taking the 2020 promotions and putting them in 2021? Is it going to be a whole new promotional calendar? I know the schedule will be a bit different just because the days are different, but what's that process been like?
Yeah, I mean, we're just starting that process. I think it's a great question, Zach, and a timely one. We're just getting that process really started. We've had some preliminary conversations as a marketing team with our general manager, Emily, that's AJ and myself, about what kind of the vision is for next year. I think a lot of the things we had planned for this year are going to end up rolling over into next year. But we're still going to take a smart and strategic approach and look at it and say, there were some decisions that were made specifically for this year when it came to some theme nights, some specialty nights. I don't want to mention anything in specific just because, there will be changes and we'll discuss those when we get there. But there were some strategic decisions made that were specific to this year. And will those strategic decisions still make sense in 2021? Will the same reasons still kind of be there? Were we planning to have this specialty night around this movie release because they were about the same thing and we wanted to kind of coordinate that timing? And now in 2021, that movie isn't coming out or something along those lines, or is delayed. So those are the kinds of the questions that we're asking and we're going to be looking at for next year and really trying to hone in on. We have a lot of our giveaways and promotions locked into next season, to be honest. And so a lot of the things that people were excited for this year to come to the stadium and partake in or try to get, they'll have the opportunity to next year. Like one of the ones that we've teased this year was the Kevin Crone tank bobblehead, which we're planning for Military Appreciation Night. It's an awesome bobblehead. I mean,
It sounds awesome. Like I don't even have to see it, and I haven't seen it, but I want it already.
Yeah. Oh man, we'll have to tweet it out again real soon. Great him coming out the latch on the top of a tank, wearing a military helmet, holding a bat with an Aces jersey on, and then his body is a tank, which is really, really cool. And something a little bit different, kind of reminiscent of the Trevor Bauer bobblehead that we did with the drone, and had some fun with a few years back. So
that was an all-timer.
One of my favorites that they did. That was before my time here. But everyone around minor league baseball really talks about that one still or brings that up to us. But we're going to be jumping into a room. We have 2 meetings scheduled over the course of the next few weeks where we're going to spend all morning. We're going to be jumping outside so that we're be able to be socially distant, but be together still and talk about all of these things, what we want to do for next season, locking that in. Looking at a potential spring training trip again so that we can get fans excited and in the know of some of our potential guys. Looking at all of those things and putting it together. So now is a really busy time for us, believe it or not. Everyone might be thinking that nothing's going on. We didn't have any baseball. It's September. We're looking at an April opening day time frame. But honestly, now is the most important time, or one of the most important times for any baseball organization in preparing for the next season and looking ahead. And that's what we're going to be really doing here.
Yeah, no doubt. It's crazy to think Major League Baseball is like their regular season is winding down, and I know it was a season unlike any other. And it's been a tough season so far for the D-backs record-wise at 21-34, and they're far from the only team that might have kind of a rough go of it this season because of so many different circumstances. Look at the defending world champs. The Nationals are having a really tough year. And it's just, I don't think you can gauge really an organization's, I guess, prowess or what have you with what happened this year, because I just think there's a lot of moving pieces that happened. But do you think this has been a successful showing for Major League Baseball? I know everybody talks about what a successful showing the NBA had in its bubble. I know baseball hadn't gone to the bubble, but would you say it's been a success so far from a fan's perspective?
For me, I think that, it's a little bit, I have feelings about it. As a baseball,
I do too.
Grew up loving baseball. I mean, I watched Yankee games every night of my summer, and I planned my day as a 10-year-old around that 7:00 first pitch and watching, at the time it was a Yankees dynasty, really, control baseball. And I loved it. I loved watching every game, hanging on every pitch, and and all of that. So, but traditionally, like, I'm different, and that's how I grew up in my fandom as someone under 30 years old. That's not very common. But, I feel like this season has been really tough to get into and tough to watch as a baseball fan. I think, again, specific to my favorite team, with all of the delays and a lot of the 7-inning games really bothered me. It just doesn't feel like baseball when you're playing, 3 out of your 7 games, you're playing a doubleheader and it's 7 innings. Like, the 7-inning games just they felt weird to me always. And every time we went into it, and in minor league baseball, it's different. I think that we need those from a roster perspective, from
the purpose is a little bit different when you get to the minor leagues.
Exactly. And I understand why they had to do the doubleheaders this year. They had to try to get the games in, and early on, they paid for the mistake of not being in a bubble to begin with by having a lot of the COVID positives, by not being in the bubble like you saw in NBA or NHL. So I wish the season was formulated differently, to be honest. My deep thoughts on this are, I wish this was a tournament. Like, I just wish we called this really what it was, or set something up where, you had Group A, Group B, kind of like the USL is doing, and set it up more tournament style, because it's not, no matter who wins the World Series this year, it's not the same in my mind.
There's nothing conventional about it, and there's going to be that asterisk, I think, if unfortunately, and there might be a very deserving team, the A's or the Dodgers or whomever win the World Series, but there'll always be, but it was 2020 and it was a fraction of the games. And I totally understand. I vibe with that for sure.
Yeah, and I think it'll be in the minds of, it might be the hardest World Series to win from an outsider, from the circumstances that players and managers and coaches and everyone's dealing with. Like, I think they deserve a lot of credit for whoever wins, and the proper due for what they've gone through, and appreciation really for our own entertainment. But, at the same time, as a fan, it's just not, it doesn't feel the same, Zach. I don't feel, but it definitely doesn't feel the same to me watching a game, and I really miss the fans. I mean, like, they're such a part of it. They're like the sixth man in basketball ever. It's just that extra circumstance that I just miss. I Judge a few weeks ago, or even, back in August, I want to say, hit a big home run in late innings against the Red Sox. And it was a moment that you just known the stadium was going to be would have been packed. And people would have been losing their minds, and you're jumping on your couch and you hear that crowd noise coming through of the 50,000 people that are experiencing that moment with you. We don't have that, especially in baseball. I think the NBA has done an amazing job with those virtual fan cams. I love those things. I don't know about you, but for me, I mention it to my fiance all the time. I love this the way they have this set up, just so I can see a person react that's like exactly involved in the game. And it's a communal thing, sports. It brings us together. It truly does. We're learning that right now. It gives us all a connection of joy, of sadness, of desperation, and going on social media and seeing the reactions of those just isn't the same as seeing the actual fans in the stands. So yeah, I've had mixed emotions about it. I don't know about you.
For me, I've kind of looked at it like this. Like, I've enjoyed having baseball on my radio. I've enjoyed having baseball on my television, and I've kind of taken those experiences and put them into a vacuum. Like, there's no, like, the context for me is that baseball is there. I enjoy watching. I enjoy listening. I enjoy being an observer of it, but that also makes me miss being in it the way I usually am. So it's really, I'm torn in two different directions, but I have appreciated just going around the MLB at the radio, the At Bat app on radio, and just browsing through my favorite broadcasts again, and hearing those teams' games called. And there's something about that I've embraced, but I'm with you in that there's something lost, and there will always be something lost for me about what happened in 2020. Obviously, I think for some more than others, and for all of us, we're going to feel it in some way.
Yeah, and again, to reiterate, I'm not complaining. I'm grateful for the guys that are out there, and I think it's a great opportunity that they can continue to make money during this time. I think what people don't realize, that I was telling a lot of my friends, is the people around the game that this kept employed. There's thousands of jobs that stayed, that people were able to do. I think of all the contractors for all of the networks, all the camera operators, all of the the statisticians, all the guys that and women, men and women that would have been on, wouldn't have been able to be doing this right now if there was no baseball season. So I still think that and laud how important it was that they did that just for people's livelihoods and appreciate that. And like I said, that's why it's a mixed feeling of, there is something missing and it doesn't feel exactly the same. It won't feel exactly the same, even if your team does win the World Series. I think we all can agree that. There's just that kind of missing aspect, but grateful that 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock every day while I'm still working, I can pop on the Yankee game, have it on in the background while I'm finishing some stuff up from work. And it helps keep you focused while you're talking about baseball,
Yeah. By the way, I'm at home in Massachusetts right now, so East Coast time. I don't know how in the world I ever did it where I have to wait until 7 o'clock at night for a live sporting event. Like, it's torture. Because right now here it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And in my mind, I'm like, sweet, we have like an hour, and then I get some sports and
I do. That's one of the underrated.
I don't know how I ever did it.
Is the timing of sports? Football Sundays. I can't tell you how many times I was up till 1 a.m., 2 a.m. on the East Coast watching some major sport and paying it for it the next morning. It was absolute nightmare. Or you fall asleep like in the fourth quarter or something and you miss the ending that you were staying up for. There was always that happened.
Yeah, it's a real thing. It's a totally different experience as a sports consumer being on the East Coast and West Coast. We won't get into that because we don't have the time, and I know we got to get to David Calvert here coming up. But quickly, we wanted to talk about the Racin Aces 5K. Can you enlighten us on what that will be? And there's going to be a release coming out shortly, but can you kind of give us a preview?
Yeah, absolutely. We're super excited. So talking about how sports is communal, we wanted to, again, bring our fans together and have a way that we all can somehow virtually be together this fall and have that those moments together. So we worked with a great partner at End Motive to set up the Racin Aces Virtual 5K. So we're kind of challenging everyone in our community far and wide. You can do this race anywhere to try to be their own Racin Ace this year. It's one of our favorite in between inning promotions that we do at the stadium with the racing cards. We want to have everyone else participate. So what it is for a $40 registration, you run the 5K, your own course on your own time by October 31st. You can upload that time to the website that we have set up. So you'll be able to see your standings just like a regular 5K. The beauty is you can run this to any time during that time frame. And we just ask for your honesty when it comes to the time. And in return, you're going to receive 3 really awesome kind of swag items with this like you would for any other 5K. So get this really cool Racin Aces hat with the Racin Aces logo on it. Dude, it's one of my favorites. Like, I can't wait to get this hat. I'm going to be wearing this around.
Now I'm intrigued.
And you'll get a racing t-shirt. Says Racin Aces again with the logo on it. Reno Aces number 20 on the back. And finally, you get a finisher's medal, which is customized to the Racin Aces 5K as well. So an opportunity for us to be together. You'll be able to upload your photo along with your time. We'll have some really fun overlays for fans to be able to put on that photo and share on social media. We'll share the hashtag with everybody so that you guys can send that on it so that you can all participate. But we're really excited. Like I said, we're missing our fans, man. We miss being with everybody at the stadium and talking to them and, having those one-to-one interactions. So we think this is a fun way for us all to get together a little bit, try to be healthy. I know a lot of people have been trying to get a little bit better in shape during quarantine, myself included. Our PR and communications manager, he's been building up for a 5K. He's really excited about this. Shout out to Kevin. So our staff will be participating for sure. Our families will. I'm sure some of our friends will. So we invite all Ace Ball fans to join us, and let's have some fun this fall and try to be healthy.
Totally. I'm going to get in on that too. And I can't wait to see the release. And again, check renoaces.com and you can get set up with the 5K. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and we're going to hear from David Calvert. We went through some superlatives with David and they're pretty fun involving former Aces players. So we'll chat with David here coming up and then we'll get back with Vince to close it out on the other side of the interview, which is coming up next as the Aces Loaded podcast continues.
Calvert's a suave looking fella these days.
Steer clear of speed bumps when you buy your next vehicle and cruise into savings with Greater Nevada Credit Union. Our loan experts will give you a roadmap for a loan that fits your budget and your lifestyle. With quick approvals, low rates, and flexible terms, we'll put you in the driver's seat faster. It's our way of helping more people live greater. Apply online or call 855-LIVE-GREATER.
We are back on the Aces Loaded podcast. Great to have you with us, as always. And we are joined by a very special guest today. It's Joe Exotic from Tiger King. If you're watching, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's actually not Joe Exotic. Although we did try and have, I think, Carol Baskin on one of the early episodes. We kicked the idea around, but it was probably going to be too much to get her. But we got the next best thing, and that's David Calvert with a strong hair game, Aces team photographer. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm team no haircut through quarantine, so I've got like a little bit of the like Mark McGuire mid-90s curl going on, and then we're just not going to talk about the mustache. It is what it is.
Well, I mean, you've elected to have the mustache, right? It's not like you couldn't shave it.
Yeah, so because I've been taking photos throughout this the pandemic, and a lot of the times I've been in indoor situations, I've elected to wear an N95 mask as often as possible. So in order for that to be effective, I have to shave the sides, and then you put the N95 mask over there. So I found a place where I was able to buy some, and then as a journalist, it's pretty important that I'm able to go out and do my job safely. So yeah, I'm wearing my mask and sporting a mustache underneath.
Nice. Well, we got Vince Ruffino just chimed in. He says you look a little bit like John Candy back from the dead. Now I'm gonna soften the blow for you and say that you're John Candy minus like a few lbs.
Yeah, thanks.
But the hair is the hair can I could see it.
Yeah,
maybe his earlier days.
Uncle Buck's a great movie, so personal
yeah.
Inspiration, I guess.
Gosh, talk about a guy that made great movies, by the way. I mean, and John Candy was in movies like Home Alone too, like he just made. Did you watch on Netflix? I think had it. It was like they delved into movies that you watched growing up, and they kind of told you a little bit about the background and how they were made.
No, I missed that. I'm all about some nostalgia right now.
I forget what it was called, and I'll try and find it for you. But Home Alone was fascinating because it turns out it's a movie that almost didn't get made, and they ran into so many just landmines with trying to get it made. And they ended up not only making it, but getting guys like Joe Pesci and John Candy to like get in there. And it was a great insight. John Hughes, I think, the great John Hughes was the guy behind Home Alone, and it was great insight as to how that movie was made. So if you get a chance, you should check it out. The Movies That Made Us. There's Vince again coming through with some solid knowledge. The Movies That Made Us is what you want to watch on Netflix for that. So
awesome.
Yeah, just keep it in mind. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. So I mentioned this last time we talked, but I'm a teacher at the university. So the semester started, and I'm teaching a couple of classes, and I'm actually taking some classes as well. So that's keeping me pretty busy right now.
What's it like over there? Are you in person there, or what's it like?
So I am teaching a hybrid class. So I have most of my students online, and then a couple of days a week they rotate. So I have a couple of people in the room. And it's weird being on campus. It's really quiet. It feels like I think the university said about 4% of the classes are being offered on campus. And I believe that includes the hybrid. So, instead of seeing, tens of thousands of people on campus walking around every day, it's a few hundred. I might pass 50 people on my way to my classroom. So yeah, it's a weird atmosphere. But it's also a cool time to be teaching journalism as well.
Are you teaching photojournalism or journalism?
Yeah.
Topic. I figured photojournalism, right?
Yeah, 2 photojournalism classes. The same 2 that I've always taught. There's a beginning class and an advanced class. And then I've got students that are some of them are just totally at home and are still social distancing and have some health risks, and so it's been challenging to come up with assignments that work for them. There's been a lot of like personal storytelling, documenting their lives, and then I have students that are out in the community photographing events. I had some students that went down to the rally in Minden last week with President Trump, which wild experience for a 19-year-old college student to cover as their first political rally right now.
Sure.
It's an interesting time.
It is. It is. I was going to ask you, you go back in history and throughout history since they started photographing events, which I don't know. I mean, when did like photographing start to become prominent? Was that like Civil War kind of around that time? Like, where you
Yeah,
got some really poignant photographs?
yeah. So Brady's photos of the Civil War kind of worked their way into Eastern newspapers and really like brought photography to the masses through journalism. But photojournalism itself kind of really took off in the um, beginning of the century with you guys have guys like Ouija in New York, who was someone who photographed crime and like sort of the nightlife and the underbelly of the city. And if you can kind of picture it, he's one of those guys with the big flash bulb and the glass breaks, and
Yep.
It's that sort of
Smoke
photography.
comes out.
Yeah, and there's that famous photo of Babe Ruth that won the Pulitzer in the 30s, when he's coming back to Yankee Stadium after his retirement. So yeah, I would say you see photojournalism and it's developed really the beginning of the century into the 30s, 40s, and then really taking off around World War II.
I took a photojournalism class at Northeastern in Boston. I was a journalism major, but there was a photojournalism class you could take, and I wanted to take it, and I did. And I'm not claiming to be any type of photographer because I've never actually really done it ever professionally. But since I've taken that class, I've been taught to kind of like view what I'm seeing through certain framework that might make for a good photo. I might just be walking down the street, or I might be at a game, and I always kind of try and visualize what a framing of a good photograph would be. Have you, during this time, because throughout history there have been iconic photographs taken at crazy times in the world, like there's that Depression photograph of the lady holding her, I think it was her daughter, and I think it won the Pulitzer as well. But have you
Dorothea Lange's Migrant Mother?
Yes, that's it. Have you seen anything through your eyes in this time that you may have captured just in your own eyes with that framing that would have captured what this time, what 2020 could be like? Like if you're seeing 2020 like 100 years down the road and you look back and you're like, wow, this is an amazing picture of what 2020 probably was.
Yeah, I mean, it's those iconic photos are less and less because we're saturated with so much imagery in our daily lives. One of the things I tell my students is that there are more photos made today, like today, Wednesday, than there were between like 2003 and the beginning of time, the beginning of photography.
That's wild.
And that statistic could probably be updated. I bet we're talking about more photos made in a given hour than there was in, the entire film history of photography. So with that in mind, it's really hard to have those photos that sort of elevate themselves. But I think about some of the stuff that I've covered in the last few months. I'm still photographing Reno 1868 games, and we're out there and we're doing stuff. And the players and the league have been very conscious of their social platform and standing up for Black Lives Matter. And so last game when they were in town, I found a pretty cool angle that I was working from center field, sort of looking back on the pitch. And you've got Reno in the background, and the players at the 7-minute mark, they all kind of gather around the middle of the field and take a knee. And it just sort of seems like, it's a national story that's happening everywhere, but that's a good way to like bring that back to Reno.
Sure.
And then I photographed some of the other, sort of stories that are going on. I've been to the testing facility for Washoe County where they're doing the COVID tests, and I photographed some of the UNR students and the National Guard members that are helping out with that. Not specific stories, but those are definitely memories, or specific photos, but those are definitely memories and stories that I'm going to look back on. It's really important to me, whether it's a baseball game or whether it's news, you always want to take the photo that you can't take tomorrow. The photo that is the moment is fleeting, and it's the one that kind of tells the story of the moment and now.
As a professional photographer, how do you maintain sort of the integrity of the currency of a photo? Because you said that the market's flooded with them, right? I mean, anybody can take a picture. And now these days with the quality of camera that you have on this, I mean, you can make a photo look semi-professional. But to you, how do you kind of uphold the integrity of what a professional photograph is supposed to be? And how do you teach that to your students?
Yeah, so as a photographer, I wear a lot of hats, but my background is photojournalism. So for me, when we're talking about ethics, it's actually really important to me, and not just sort of the ethics and integrity of the image, but also just generally the way that I try to act when I'm on an assignment. But I also have a lot of corporate clients as well, and so the needs are different. And I generally I try to I don't want to interfere with the photographic integrity of the moment. So I'm not, staging anything. I'm not manipulating anything digitally. I want the photo to be an accurate representation of what I saw, even when I'm doing it for a corporate client. It might mean taking a photo with a few more stands and their fans in the background during a regular season, just to make it look like the ballpark's a little bit fuller than it normally is. But generally speaking, the integrity of the photographic moment is important, and then also the respect for the people that you're photographing. You want to make sure that their experience with you doesn't affect the people who have to interact with them in the future. So I'm always thinking about the photographer that might come after me in a portrait situation or in an event, which I think is a pretty solid way to go through life. If I'm a jerk to someone or I make their experience uncomfortable, they're not going to trust the next photographer. They're not going to talk to the next journalist, and it all starts to fall apart from there.
I like that viewpoint. We're going to get into some fun Aces stuff here in a moment, but I want to ask first, what's it been like for you to photograph 1868 in the middle of this pandemic? I know I've been actually broadcasting 1868 games on radio. It's my first real experience with soccer on radio, which has been a blast. It was a little bit scary for me at first because it was something I'd never done, but I've grown to love it. I've grown to love actually calling it. What's this been like for you?
Yeah, so soccer is my second favorite sport. I've never been a big football guy. I love basketball, but I like being outside for sports. So when we got the team in Reno, I was excited about that to begin with, and it's been awesome to have that as kind of a distraction. I mean, it's work, but it's I think about all of the free time we had back in March and April, and you're trying to figure out what's going on with the world and what's safe and what isn't. It just feels good to pick up your camera and go and make some pictures and tell some stories and to photograph sports. We're the only sports happening in Northern Nevada right now. If you're a fan of Reno and you're a fan of sports, you got to support 1868. And the team's playing great. It's my favorite group of guys that we've ever had. I love the coaching staff. I think there's something about them going through this experience together. There's responsibility in keeping each other healthy, and they're just winning. They've always been a team that knows how to score, but seeing the way their man marking has really dominated other teams, and what they're able to do, from the wings, it's an incredible team. And I love photographing soccer. It's they call it a beautiful game, and it really is. And we have a great ballpark for it because there's all these interesting angles. And I spend a lot of times photographing from above, looking down on the field because I want that clean background. Because we can only have so many pictures that show the empty stands, and after a while that becomes a distraction visually. So I'm looking for other places to go, and it's been a lot of fun to just get back to work.
Yeah. Shout out to Ian Russell and his guys, by the way. Last match at the time we're recording this. They'll play another one by the time this comes out, but they pulled off that amazing draw versus Sac Republic FC in the last minute, getting the game-tying goal, which is a lot of fun to call on radio. Too bad you weren't there to shoot it. That would have been a fun one if it were at Greater Nevada. You're probably bummed about that.
Yeah, that would have been a good one. Those Sacramento games are always exciting. It's a team that we have a little bit of trouble with. We're not quite as dominant, and to get a last, at the death goal like that is really says a lot about the quality of the team and the players.
Yeah, sure does. All right, let's get into Aces, and this is the first time we're recording Aces Loaded when the season would have been done. So it kind of feels like a post-mortem of a season that never really happened. So instead, what we're going to do, you had this great idea. We're going to go through yearbook style and hand out superlatives. I'm excited to pitch you these questions because, I haven't called an Aces game yet, since I've been hired. I filled in for Rads last year. By the way, shout out to Ryan, who's now doing Sunday Night Football for Westwood One. I feel like we got to throw that in. Well-deserved and no surprise to any of us. But I'd love to be educated on what the history of some of these cool elements of baseball are. So I'm going to pitch you these superlatives, and you get to come through with your answers and tell me what you think.
Yeah.
We're going to start in honor of you with coming through with the flow today. We're going to start with best facial hair. Who has the best facial hair? And this is going back from the beginning of Aces, right? Like 2008 and 9.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of casual fans would assume Archie Bradley because they see that big beard now, which I miss.
But he didn't have it.
He didn't have it when he was here. He's a clean-shaven country boy from Oklahoma. He looked like QB1. You know who I'm going to go with? He only pitched maybe a couple of innings for us. Clay Zavada. And so this deep cut, Zavada was a relief pitcher, and he had an interesting story. He was basically like out of baseball, independent league. I think he was working as like a security guard or a janitor or something like that. And he was throwing in an independent league game and still had a little zip on his fastball. But what's great about Zavada is he had the classic Raleigh fingers curl. Kind of looked like a pirate. Got hurt at the beginning of the, I'm going to say 2010, 2011 season, somewhere in there. And then we never saw him again. But he was there for media day. Great mustache.
You went to independent ball. I'm going to bring up, and I'm trying to get the year right now, and I can for you here. I'm going to bring up David Peralta, not so much for the hair, but because the Diamondbacks are probably the best team out there as far as scouting the independent leagues. And I remember, David, you guys had David Peralta come through, right?
Yeah, he had a couple of rehab assignments with us.
Oh, he didn't come through as a true minor leaguer?
No, he came back as a big leaguer.
Oh, wow. Okay. So my David Peralta story is that when the Diamondbacks signed him out of Indie Ball, they sent him to Visalia, and the Stockton Ports were in town to play Visalia, and it was like the 3rd or 4th of July. It was one of those big series where there's going to be a huge crowd. And so that, I see David Peralta on the lineup card. I'm like, who's this guy? And they said, oh, it's signed out of Indie Ball. And he proceeded to just torch us for 3 games. And I'm like, who the hell is this ringer? Like, who did they bring in from Indie Ball? And now David Peralta is an established outfielder in the big leagues, but it just was a testament to how good the Diamondbacks are at scouting and signing guys out of Indie Ball. And I think that's something that, not to get too far off the tracks here, but scouting Indie Ball is going to be crazy the next couple of years because they cut down the draft, and you're going to have a lot of these guys that would have been later round picks playing Indie Ball, and you're going to find a lot of diamonds in the rough, I think, in the future.
Yeah, you know who was another good Indie Ball pickup that Aces fans will love? Ildemaro Vargas came out of Indie Ball. It's a lot of great guys. Diamondbacks have been good at that. Speaking of David Peralta, really great stance. He's got that kind of Ichiro lean, where he kind of aims the bat forward, and I love photographing him. And he was wearing the big league helmets too, so the one ear panel helmet, and some guys just look cool. He's a guy who looked cool.
Love those helmets on the rehab assignments. All right, moving on. Best Twitter follow. I kind of have an idea who this might be, but go ahead.
All right, so I did it just like I did last time. You're going to expect me to say Cody Decker.
No, I didn't.
Okay. A lot of guys would say Cody Decker. Cody is a prolific tweeter and has a good audience, but my favorite follow would be Brandon McCarthy. Another one that guys would probably not think of a lot. Yeah, he did not play with the Aces for long. I believe it was on a rehab start. Came in maybe through 1 or 2 appearances in Reno. One of my favorite pitchers, just because he's a guy who has an analytical approach to the game. He gets a little. His tweets are political. He's socially conscious, and he's the kind of voice that I like to see in a clubhouse. And he's funny. He's got a dry sense of humor.
I thought you might throw Trevor Bauer in.
Yeah, I like Trevor. Trevor's a little confrontational.
Yeah, I mean, it's a friend of mine who's another broadcaster. He and I were talking the other day about how he's just kind of the ultimate troll, Trevor, if you follow him on Twitter. And it can be fun at times. It can grate on you at times, depending on your perspective. But, I mean, he's certainly active, and he's certainly not afraid to get his stuff out there.
Trevor's got a great Twitter handle based on his nickname. Bauer Outage is that's a top baseball nickname in the game right now.
All right. Most likely to move to Reno after their playing career. Now, I don't know if this is a dig at Conrad Schmidt, because he does live in Reno and calls Aces games on TV with Alex Margulies on NSN. First of all, before you answer this, like, what's the framework? What do you look for in someone that would be most likely to move to Reno? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So with Conrad, I think you got to lean on the Conrad's a bit of a cowboy. You know, he does a lot of volunteer work with the rodeo. You know, he used to work in a mine. I mean, like, just a Nevada guy.
Yeah.
He went to college here too, so he has the connection. But he's also got that great mustache. You know,
Sounds
good
like a guy
facial
most
hair.
likely to move to Virginia City, not Reno.
You know what? So Conrad got married up in Virginia City. I was actually the photographer for the wedding. So yeah, they fit right in. It was awesome walking down C Street with their wedding party.
That's cool.
Yeah. So Conrad's a good one. I'm gonna go with Phil Nevin. So Nev he's gotten used to the big city. But I can't think of anyone who enjoyed the Reno lifestyle while he was here more than Nev. You know, he was I believe he had a place up at Montreux, so he was golfing in the morning, you know, on the gorgeous golf course. And then he would ride his Harley to the ballpark occasionally. And, you know, there's a lot of motorcycle stuff going on in Reno. And if I recall, Nevin enjoyed himself a trip to Louis. You might actually catch him kind of posted up on the corner of the bar, having a post-game beverage and enjoying some Basque food. So I think Nevin had a soft spot for Reno.
Who doesn't have a soft spot for Reno?
Ooh.
I mean, no, I'm not asking you to answer that, but I'm just saying, I'm throwing it out. That's a rhetorical question. Like, what? I mean, I've been a Reno lover for years. I love going up there whenever I can, even if it's just to take a drive for a day and go for a walk along the Truckee, you know? So I'm just throwing it out there. But
I love it here. You know, there's some other guys who would probably love to come back. I'm thinking of some guys in the PCL. I'm pretty sure, I think Ty France might have hit like 40 home runs against us or something. There's just a few of those.
Elsinore. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, there's a few of those guys. A lot of guys from El Paso liked hitting here, so I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up with some Chihuahuas up in Reno someday.
Best walk-up song. I actually have an answer to this, believe it or not, but you go ahead first.
All right. Okay, so my favorite is I keep going with these, like, I don't remember he played here, guys, but Miguel Montero, Chacarron. It was the same one that he used in the big leagues.
Chacarron.
So whenever we do the bad songs for a good cause fundraiser, I drop $20 at the table and have him play Chacarron just as a tribute to Miguel. I love that song. It's great. There's some classic baseball ones too. You know, Mike Jacobs, he had the song by the outfield with Josie's on a vacation far away.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, that's one that gets the crowd going. But for me, Chacarron is like a top 5 walk-up song.
I love how walk-up songs just kind of pop in. Like, so you bring up the outfield song, I Don't Want to Lose Your Love, and that was Grant Green's walk-up song when he was in Stockton. And we were at a rest stop one time coming back home from a Southern California trip. It was like 2 a.m. And we're, you know, this Flying J on I-5 or whatever, and all of a sudden we hear, Josie's on a vacation far away. And one of our players is like, hey, Greeny's coming up to bat. And, like, it was like, it wasn't just that we were at a rest stop. Like, it was Grant was coming up to bat, because that's what you go back to at a place and time. My favorite walk-up song, by the way, Conrad Schmidt. I want to give him another shout-out with the Johnny Cash song.
Yeah, that's a good one. And no one else has thought to do that, you know, as a tribute to Reno. I was thinking of other good Reno songs that you could put on there.
Grateful Dead had one.
Yeah,
Friend of the Devil.
Friend of the Devil would be good. That would be a top one for me. And then I've always had this conversation with the guys at the ballpark, but if I had to pick a walk-up song, it'd be the like the first 15 seconds of Led Zeppelin's Hot Dog. A little bit of a baseball tie-in, but like a nice energy song. So yeah.
Okay. I like it. Best delivery for a pitcher.
Ooh. Josh Colementor.
Colementor was going to be my guy, and we didn't talk about this before, but I saw Colementor in Visalia, and he had that devastating changeup, and the delivery was deceptive. Yeah,
and he was just lights out when he was in Reno, and it was kind of unexpected too, because you know he profiled as kind of an org guy, and then all of a sudden he shot to the big leagues, and he had that nice little like half a season run up there, and he stuck around in the big leagues for a long time. He had a beautiful delivery. Just kind of unorthodox and interesting. Um, one that I always liked as a kid growing up, and I don't think it was pretty. It was one that I could like mimic when I was playing wiffle ball. Mike Hampton pitched a 3 1/3 innings for Reno. It's his last professional outing before he retired. And I love the way he brought his arm and glove together at the same time. Kind of reminded me of Terry Mulholland if we want to like dive
Love
into
that.
the
Yes.
90s. But yeah, I loved Mike Hampton's delivery.
Love it. Okay, we're winding down here, so we're gonna end with best major leaguer that you've seen play for the Aces. And this is so subjective. I mean, there's no wrong answer.
Yeah, so there's the guys that you thought were going to be good when they were in Reno, and there's the guys who have the best career. And so I would say I'm looking at the guys that are in the big leagues and have made the most of their career. And it's hard not to say Trevor Bauer right now. He's probably the most dominant of the guys. But I think I would go with Adam Spanky Eaton for that World Series last year. And just a guy who, I loved watching him play in Reno. For my money, he's probably the best player that has played in Reno. He was absolutely dominant when he was here, and PCL MVP and not even a full season. And he was one of those guys who was like an automatic. He was either going to get a double or he was going to get on first base and he was going to score. And it just felt like that whole season he was in position to score runs, and then you'd have guys behind him like Mike Jacobs knocking in, getting RBIs, and that was just an awesome team to watch. And so, yeah, I love Adam Eaton's career, and he's a guy who I've followed since he left Reno.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish we can keep going with this. We're going to run out of time here, but this was so fun, man. I love talking photography with you. I love talking ace ball with you. It's an education for me, and I appreciate having you as a resource. And here's to being able to make some more memories and to have some more superlatives be thrown out as we get into 2021 and beyond.
Yeah, and I think it'd be cool if we can talk Vince into when he posts this on social media. Maybe we get the fans to weigh in on some of these as well. I'd like to know what other people think, especially the most likely to move back to Reno question, because I think that's kind of an interesting one to see. Who connected with people. And I know there's people like who's the person you most want to move back to Reno. Trent Olchin. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see their opinions. So we'll see if we can get Vince to do that.
Why Olchin?
Olchin was a fan favorite. He had a very specific following of UNR sorority girls. It's, handsome guy. I don't think if we'd had best smile on here, it would have gone to Trent Olchin. And then the accent, it's hard to beat that Australian accent, I guess.
Yep.
Just a fun dude.
Awesome. DC, thanks, man. And keep shooting 1868 well. I hope I run into you here in maybe a month or so. I can get up to Reno. And thanks for coming on, man.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Anytime you want to chat baseball.
Anytime. We're going to do it again, I promise. David Calvert joining us, Aces team photographer. We'll be back to wrap up the Aces Loaded podcast after this.
Go! Right, good.
Back to close out the Aces Loaded podcast. Thanks so much for being with us today. Thanks to Emily Jansen, Aces GM, and also to Nasser Ali Musa from Hop Valley Brewing Company for giving us some insight into Ace Ball Ale and how it came to be and really hitting on some of the notes, both visually and flavor-wise of the beer. I really encourage you to go out and find this beer if you're in Northern Nevada. Outside of supporting the Aces, you're not going to regret it because it's a delicious, refreshing, not only summer beer, but I think a beer that translates well into the fall too. Ace Ball Ale from Hop Valley Brewing Company in Eugene, Oregon. Phenomenal. And if you're in Northern Nevada, go out and get some ASAP. I would also like to give a shout out to Reno 1868 FC. For those who don't know, I've actually been doing those games on radio on ESPN 94.5 FM in Reno and also on Sirius XM. But They're having an historic season, 1868. Right now, they are in a virtual tie for first place atop the Group A standings with Sac Republic FC. But because of the tiebreaker going to goal differential, Reno technically is in first place. Reno owns the tiebreaker. So shout out to 1868. Ian Russell and his guys have been really fun to watch. You can catch the streams, the video streams on ESPN Plus, Nevada Sportsnet in Northern Nevada, and also, as I mentioned, on the radio. And I'll be with you on the radio side as 1868 FC looks to continue a fantastic season. Thanks to Vince Ruffino, who produced our broadcast today. As always, again, for Emily and Nasser and everybody with the Reno Aces and Reno 1868, Zack Bayruti saying so long, and we'll see you next time back on the Aces Loaded podcast.